제2세션 이제 시작하도록 하겠습니다.
네, 그럼 말씀해주신 대로 그 유엔 최고 인권대표 사무소의 인권조사관이신 데니엘 목스터 씨가 그 표현의 자유 특보님의 발제 취지를 전해주시기로 했는데요. 한 20분에서 25분 정도 발제를 하시고 그 다음에 토론을 이어가도록 하겠습니다.
I'll be as brief as I can because I think this matter from a human rights law perspective has been relatively well settled and clarified through practice by both the Special Rapporteur but also by the UN Human Rights Committee, which is, as explained previously, the body that is mandated to oversee compliance with the convention, with the covenant on civil and political rights, but also by other human rights mechanisms. And just to them generally cite the authoritative sort of statement by the Human Rights Committee on this matter, it's found in General Comment 34 on Article 19 of the Covenant, which states that defamation laws must be crafted with care to ensure that they comply with the requirements of legitimate aim, of legality and proportionality, and that they do not serve in practice to stifle freedom of expression. All such laws, in particular penal defamation laws, should include such defenses as defense of truth, and they should not be applied with regards to those forms of expression that are not, of their nature, subject to verification, that is, opinions. At least with regards to comments about public figures, consideration should be given to avoiding penalizing or otherwise rendering unlawful, untrue statements that have been published in error but without malice. So this is the other defense. In any event, a public interest in the subject matter of the criticism should be recognized as a defense. So that's the third defense. Care should be taken by states parties to avoid excessively punitive measures and penalties. Where relevant, states parties should place reasonable limits on the requirement for a defendant to reimburse the expenses of the successful party. State parties should consider the decriminalization of defamation, and in any case, the application of the criminal law should only be countenanced or applied in the most serious cases, and imprisonment is never an appropriate penalty. It is impermissible for a state party to indict a person for criminal defamation, but then not to proceed to trial expeditiously. Such a practice has a chilling effect that might unduly restrict the exercise of freedom of expression of the person concerned and others. So the conclusion then, as drawn from the practice of the Human Rights Committee, is that although defamation laws are permissible, the criminalization of defamation should be considered in order to successfully implement the right to freedom of expression. Secondly, imprisonment will be contrary to the covenant in all cases. Criminal prosecution only for the most severe circumstances. The recommended or the solution that is most in line with the object and purpose of the covenant is to restrict the regulation of defamation to civil law and not to criminal law. And as the committee states, 3 defenses should be allowed for in the domestic legal system in all cases. So one is the defense of truth. The second is that comments relating to public figures. And the third is the public interest defense. And I'm just going to briefly mention also that the UN Human Rights Committee has opined on this issue regarding Korea in its 2015 concluding observations. This is where the committee in most circumstances, or most prominently, apply the requirements of the covenant to the regulation or to practices domestically. And the committee states that it is, quote, concerned about the increasing use of criminal defamation laws to prosecute persons who criticize government action and obstruct business interests, and about the harsh sentences, including lengthy prison terms handed down in such cases. It notes with concern that people can be criminally prosecuted even for making statements that are true, except when such statements are made solely for public interest. Now, reminding of the previous quote on the interpretation of the covenant by the committee, this is indeed problematic under the covenant. And so the committee recommended the Republic of Korea to consider decriminalizing defamation given the existing prohibition in the Civil Act, and should in any case restrict the application of criminal law to the most serious defamation cases, bearing in mind that imprisonment is never an appropriate penalty. It should ensure that the defense of truth is not subject to any further requirement, so truth itself should be enough. It should promote a culture of tolerance regarding criticism, which is essential for a functioning democracy. And I can just sort of fill in with some of the experiences that the mandate of the Special Rapporteur experiences, is that in many countries where criminal defamation is still the case, there is always there is both practice and always the risk of misapplication, arbitrary application, and oftentimes to silence dissent. And so that is why the Special Rapporteur, and often alone but also oftentimes together with other Special Rapporteurs, such as the Special Rapporteur for Human Rights Defenders, consistently recommends states, or expresses concern and recommends states to decriminalize defamation and also to stop procedures against individuals who have been charged. And of course, in any case, we have considered the imprisonment of an individual for defamation, although consistent with domestic law, because it is inconsistent with international human rights law standards. We then also considered that imprisonment to constitute arbitrary deprivation of liberty, which is guaranteed under Article 9 of the Covenant, thus another human rights violation. So with that, I think I'll end my summary, and thank you.